This conference will now be recorded.
All right, it is now just after 6 p.m. on Tuesday, September 20th, 2022, and I'll call this regular meeting of council to order. I respectfully acknowledge that we are meeting on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional lands of the Cree, Anishinaabe, and the homeland of the Métis people. We are meeting here in Winnipeg, and on the screen attending virtually is Councillor Axworthy. Thank you, Steve. Around the table, we'll start with Councillor Randall.
Hello, I'm Graham Randall.
Lon Turner, CAO.
Kenny McMorris, Mayor.
Erwin Kumke, Councillor.
Ian Chatsey, Councillor.
Thank you, gentlemen. And this meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to our website in the next day or two for viewing. So we'll move on to the adoption of the agenda. Be it resolved, the agenda be adopted as presented. May I have a mover? Ian, thank you. Second? Steve, thank you. Any additions to the agenda? Erwin?
Given this is the first meeting since the death of Elizabeth II, it would be appropriate to have a moment of silence.
We could do that.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other additions? Hearing none, all those. Sorry.
CSO agreement.
Oh, pardon me. Yes, the CSO agreement. Community Safety Officer.
Right.
Excellent. Any others? Any other additions? Hearing none, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Minutes of the September 6th regular meeting of council have been circulated to all members of council. Be it resolved that the minutes of September 6, 2022 regular council meeting be adopted as presented. May I have a mover? Erwin, thank you. Steve, second. Thank you. Any comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. We do not have any delegations tonight, so we will move on to our committee reports. Starting with Public Works, and unfortunately, I did not get my Public Works report this month, so I will table that until our next committee reports meeting. Sorry about that. Finance. Yeah.
Lon, were you able to get that slide up?
I didn't know what you wanted.
Yeah, I did send it to you. That's okay.
You did. I didn't know you wanted it as a slide. No, my bad.
No, no trouble at all. I didn't bring enough copies for everyone, but I'll just let you share. One there. Share that one.
Thank you.
So this is just a summary of the general operating fund. I just took a look at the revenue, and 9% of the revenue outstanding is outstanding, and main areas are the user fees, $116,000. The parking lot, $20,000, fire protection, $68,000, and green fees from the golf course are about $46,000. So I'm sure those will all be collected at some point. Sequentially, the revenue actual versus July is up about 7%. On the expense side, we have up 43% from July. The emergency expense is $129,000. That alone is up 22% from July. And then there's also about $1 million left over in the budget to cover expenses for 2022. So we're in good shape on that. So when you take a look at the revenue versus the expense, you can see the difference. The outstanding surplus is about $741,000, and that's down 43% from July. So that's just month over month. Our cash position is about $3.6 million, which is down about $500,000 from July, which is 13%. But if you look at the opening balance for cash at $3.1 million, the current surplus is about 1.3, so we have a surplus of cash of 4.4 million. So let's just take a look at the accounts payable, which is 2.2 million, and then just divide the two, and you can see that we've got our accounts payable covered 2 times, which is very comfortable. So I'm pleased with the way the finances are for August.
I was expecting a much more dire
Well, this doesn't reflect on the budget year to date versus actuals.
True. I was just looking at the month over month.
Right. I mean, my concern had been we have incurred some substantial expenses, most of which were not budgeted for. So I was hoping to get a bit of a snapshot on where we stand now and where we're likely to stand at year end. Because given, well, the expenses from here till year end are fairly predictable. Fairly predictable because, you know, our labor costs tail right off.
Yeah, and today's payables are on the low side.
Yeah. So I think it would be an interesting exercise with Claude and Ian could get together to do a bit of a projection because, quite frankly, making some of the hard decisions that we got to make in the next near term would be easier made if we had a clear picture of where we're likely to end up.
Well, we have received from Lon an email where he just projected through to where we're likely to end up at year end. Did not everybody receive that?
Yeah, Ian and I can go over what Michelle and I went over, look at it in more detail. Been over it a couple times. Unless you want to put a halt on all
No,
controllable expenses like repair maintenance and brush pickup and that kind of thing.
Well, the brush pickup is the one that's heavy on my concern.
and that is further down on the agenda for discussion. So
I think the remaining budget for the year is going to be very tight. I think we all know that.
Yeah, I think you had forecast maybe 65, 70,000 of a surplus.
A little minimal, yeah.
Yeah.
The nice thing is with DFA, they don't cover 80%. It's based on your population, and we're going to get more like 87% coverage. But we're not going to receive the money.
yeah.
She told me that on the phone when I spoke to her directly. So.
Okay.
2 years.
Sorry, Lon, can you just repeat that we weren't going to get 80%, we would get what?
Quite a bit more than that.
Ah.
So I told her the bill was around 118,000 total. And the part for the MPP is going to be our part, which is going to be around 3,000 or 4,000. So they're going to cover the rest of that. So they're going to cover 110, 114 out of the 118,
That's pretty good.
which I thought was really good.
That's pretty good.
I'm just curious, why did the emergency expenses, they were around 91,000, you'll want to say
96.
96, and now their total is at 129.
We just laid invoices that came in, the equipment rental too, because the lake is still high.
And there was 2 or 3 other
Renting a
parties
tractor.
involved who didn't get their invoices in as
Yeah.
quickly
We
as
didn't
regular.
actually do any new purchasing.
No, but we got billed for them later.
Okay.
I can't.
So yeah, there was Miles Landscaping and some others that filtered in later.
So the actuals were for work done probably in
118.
July. Expensive thing.
Yeah, it's been an expensive summer.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Very good.
We'll move on to protective services. Steve, would you like to start with the fire report?
Sure. Today was actually, or this August was actually a slow month. So there were a total of 4 calls in August. 2 were in the arm of Victoria Beach. Both hydro were related. They were both hydro related with no damage in either event. There were 2 calls in the arm of Alexander. 1 call was to a motor vehicle rollover. There were no injuries that were found. There were no bodies that were found. There were no people that were found. It was just simply strangely a car in the ditch. So all other calls were hydro related with damage to hydro poles. The fire department are checking and maintaining their equipment and gear through the summer months, and we'll get back into the regular training in September. And then, we'll get into all the brushing a little bit later in the meeting. So I'll just leave all of that for a little bit later.
Okay.
That's it.
Thanks, Steve. Any questions for fire? Steve? Moving on to police. Erwin?
Each of you will have received a copy of the police report. What I've been trying to do is take a look at the current stats relative to where they were a year ago. There's some problems because the coding was not exactly the same, but there were 120 incidents occurred in August of 2022 compared to 103 last year. I tried to determine where the increase is coming from, and I think it's kind of interesting because in 2021, they did 12 laser calls. This year, they did 34. So the police are out there running their lasers a lot more. And I think, I've noticed a noticeable drop in speeders on Sept Road. So that accounts for all of the increase. So when you look at the report, it looks like crime is increasing, but that's not the case. There was one break-in recorded in August, and I have heard at least just the last day or two that there's been several in the Albert Beach / Gilbert and Alexander side. So
Break-ins?
Yeah. So, but I haven't got the details yet. So be mindful if you see unusual cars driving around, out of province plates. Don't hesitate to pick up the phone and call our police department.
That's it for now. Okay, thank you. Any questions for Steve?
Was the break-in, was that the most serious of the offense for last month?
It was a break-in to a garage. So there's no word on extent of theft. So.
Thank you. Steve, do you have a question?
It was just more sort of just a couple of comments. The radar speed sign that is up over at on Sept Road, that has gone a very long way to slowing people down on that on that road, as well as the one that's over on David. So again, it's a budgetary thing, but I really think that we should invest in another one come the next budget year, and potentially a speed camera for the areas, for the restricted area that continue to get violated, and people drive down very quickly, drop off, run back before the police can come back and ticket them for violating the VRA. So I just wanted to throw that out there, but no, it's really good to hear that the police are starting to step up enforcement on speeders.
Well, I've noticed both the police and the CSOs this summer were much more visible than in previous years, and running the radar guns, that slows people down.
Yeah, and you had mentioned with your report, Erwin, this doesn't necessarily speak to an increase in crime. It speaks more to improved vigilance on behalf of our police force, which is a good sign.
If anything, there's a decrease in crime because there's only one break-in. Usually around this time, we're starting to see the break-ins escalate. So
most of them happen in October.
These are stats for August.
Yeah.
So
October is the break-in season. We'll see how it goes then.
Don't tell people that.
Yes. Come on now.
All right, thank you.
it's the most wonderful time of the year.
Moving on to special events, just a reminder that there is a special events permit form that's available on our website, and it's for residents, associations, businesses who wish to have a special event that may require temporary reasonable parking or noise exemptions for a special event. So please go to our website, forms and documents, and download the permit, and then it's sent to the office here and to the BB Police for approval. At no charge. And I don't have any particular special event for the municipality in general, but the BB Golf Course is turning 100 in 2023. And I've had a couple conversations with Carl, our golf course manager, about it, and he'd like to add some signage, some updated signage with celebrating 100 years, possibly under our welcome sign. There's spot for that. And also he wants to add signage to the golf course and maybe update his golf carts, which he's responsible for. But
Do you want to ask him to design those signs, or what he's thinking, or did you want the other group?
well, I can.
What's design, maybe just the words.
Yeah, he does. He does have on the golf scorecards. There's a specific design, and he does have caps and T-shirts, perhaps with a specific design. But
Well, maybe that deserves a line in our 2023 budget, golf
Yeah.
course celebration.
well, he doesn't.
So it's-
Yeah, hopefully the signage won't be too much, but it is coming up in 2023. So that's something for us to
Thank you.
consider.
Well, why don't we throw it back to him to say, come to the table with some ideas.
Yeah,
We've already spent some money for 2023, but not too much.
I can go back to him before he takes off in November as well. So,
Good.
or Ian,
Sure.
Ian and I can
Yeah.
sit down with him.
Yes,
So he's gone leaving the province,
Yes, he goes south for a few months.
3 months, so.
So those are my special event comments. Going on to golf course, Ian, I hope I didn't steal any thunder there.
No, I was just gonna go through some of the financials. Revenue, this revenue year to date is 165,000. That's up from 140 in July, so that's up 18%. The expense versus the revenue, looks like there's I guess we can use the word profit, but surplus of $55,000. So
Yes,
they're still
So it'll be second or third year in a row, we actually generated a surplus.
Second,
I think it's gotta be third.
Once COVID hit, golf course revenues
Went way up.
went way up. So
I notice that whenever I go to play, there's a long lineup.
that's good.
It's a nice course.
It is nice.
Any comments on golf?
No.
All right, thank you, Ian. Move on to municipal buildings, Graham.
Municipal buildings, just to run through the list. The doctor's cottage, we've been exchanging emails involving Steve as the chair of the doctor committee. Pretty well all the shutdown work has been done, and we're just waiting for confirmation on the water shut off. We understand that the work has already been subbed out, so that's fine, and the bill will come in directly to Lon. Not much more to say about the doctor's cottage other than the disposition of the keys, and we'll sort that out in according to what the TO specifies. Moving on to the police barracks, arrangements have been made for the winter shutdown of the plumbing in the barracks. Next subject is police housing, and this revolves around the property at number 41 Hampton, which we are renting to provide winter accommodation for our second in command, Artie Rexsealer and his wife Carol and their dog Bella, as a matter of fact. I had a very good meeting with them and with Charlene over the weekend, and all the details are being ironed out just fine. I've got a text from Charlene this morning. She's looking after the MTS line, and Audie's going to bring a dish over for his TV reception. So what I wanted to accomplish is that Audie and Charlene know each other, they can talk to each other, they work things out just fine. So I hope to just back out of it and let them get along very nicely, and it's working well so far. As far as the stairs, just so that this doesn't get forgotten, I keep throwing it up. The inspection for the insurance claim is still pending. Care of the one contractor who had tentatively agreed to go around and look at them, but the water conditions are not quite suitable to permit that yet. The lake is dropping just a little bit, but I think we're going to be right all the way to freeze up before we see any noticeable drop in the lake level. As far as the golf course, we've got some quotes on some roofing that's required in 2023. And we're also looking at another locker and possibly a ramp for disadvantaged people in 2023. We hope to hear more from the accessibility committee as to where they would rank that on their list of things to do.
Mhm.
The ramp to the golf course is, in their mind, it's never been high on the list of
No.
accessibility priorities. But it might sneak up there this year, and we can only ask them what they think, which is what we'll do. As far as the Moonlight Inn, the estimate for the remedial repairs are still pending care of our friend Wolf at Safe Haven. On the bakery, the last of the reported deficiencies have been dealt with possible exception of some backfilling, which has been referred to Public Works to take a look at and tell us what they think should be done or not done. And arrangements been made for the winter shutdown. Care of Mitch Poirier, who did all the remedial plumbing repair. He's been all over the building, so that's in good shape. The VB store, we've got quotes, and here we're just talking a few hundreds of dollars of it, outstanding. We've got quotes to do some repairs to the front and the back step and the ramps, and I've met with Lise and taken photographs. So that's under control. And Lise is she's more than capable of coordinating with Public Works her requirement for water after the municipal shutdown. Public Works runs a water truck over and they hook it up. The VB store has sort of a umbilical that they can plug in the water tank. So she'll sort that out with Public Works as she's done in past years. And everything else is pretty much ship shape as far as the store is concerned for now. And that concludes my municipal billings report.
I just want to make a comment on police barracks.
Yes.
I know I saw Anne, Constable Anne, at one point, and she sometimes stays there instead of going home to Bolster.
Oh, well, then
So we might
I'll have
want
to
to
hold
check
off
her
on,
to see if she's.
how do I get a hold of Ann? I don't know if I've ever even talked to her.
I drove by there today to drop off some recycling and there was 2 or 3 vehicles parked over by the
Yeah, well, maybe
I'll get your
Mitch is
contact.
not gonna go in and cut off their water while people there. We've given Mitch the go ahead to cut off the water when the time is right, getting a little closer to freeze up. But we could defer that
I
indefinitely.
just don't want to.
But we don't want
Leave
to,
one day and come back and there's no water, so just maybe lots
yeah,
of
but
water
we don't
contact.
want to let it go past freeze up, so we screw up the lines. Should I talk to Ann? Sounds like I need to talk to
Well-
Mitch again.
air.
I would talk to Kevin or Lon can give you Anne's contact information, see if she's still using it.
I mean, that the barracks are not winterized. 2 years ago, I delayed the shutdown of my cabin by a week and it cost me $1,000 and the damn lines froze.
It could cost a lot more in the barracks building. It's a bigger, longer, more elaborate
Yeah,
structure.
so maybe just get the contact information and just make sure. I mean, if it needs to be done sooner, it needs to be done sooner.
It doesn't need to be done sooner, but it has to be done
Mhm.
5 minutes before freeze up.
Yeah.
That's not going to change.
Yeah.
So we don't need to do anything different. We're gonna carry on with, we'll shut it down when it has to be shut down. Period.
Just that Mitch has over 300 clients, so he gets busy.
Yeah, well, it's on his to-do list right now. I made sure it was there. But we'll certainly want to coordinate this to the best of our ability. Also with the police barracks on a supplementary issue. This speaks back to 41 Hampton and Artie and his wife. The house that they're moving into, there's hardly any furniture. There's a couch. That's about it. He's bringing his own bed because he needs a special bed. I invited him to borrow for the winter any of the furniture in the barracks that he thinks he could use to round out a nice living space. And Public Works will help him move any of it. So
Yeah.
this gives us some continuing value out of the barracks and makes things a little more comfortable, a little more friendly for Audie. Because we've made a commitment to provide suitable housing, and Audie knows that I'll do whatever I have to do to make sure he's comfortable.
Question, Graham, when did you find out that the police officer was sleeping over there?
I didn't, just now.
Yeah.
Like
I didn't know.
it concerns me
Couple
that our chief constable should have sought out permission for that.
She's been staying there during the summer though, as well.
Yeah.
So it's not like.
I don't see that as a problem or as an irregularity. There's, I just kind of assumed that when the CSOs moved out, the place was vacant. Our police chief doesn't need our permission for somebody to stay in the barracks a little while longer, or at least not to my knowledge.
So just touch base with them. I'm not sure if she's still using it. She was also doing the final, doing a cleanup.
I think I'd rather talk to our police chief.
Okay.
Say, I just found out that there's some continuing use, so would you make sure that Ann knows, please, that when it comes close to freeze up, we have to pull the plug on your water, whether we like it or not.
It might be getting so cold in there if the heat's not on.
The heat's okay.
Oh,
Long story short, we're running that building on 100 amp service.
Yeah.
It should be on 200 amp, but that electric furnace, it can operate at about 81% capacity with 100 amp service, providing you don't have a dozen other things all turned on. So that's not a problem. We don't need to disconnect the hydro, and that furnace will continue to generate more than enough heat all winter long. But that's part of the close it up for the end of the season to turn those damn thermostats down, so we're not using shitloads of electricity.
Are you planning to heat it all winter? Why?
No.
It's properly winterized and the water's drained. My cabin sits all winter with no heat.
That's right. That was the intention, is to drain the water, but we're not disconnecting the hydro. It is capable of generating. But I'll have to stay on top of that.
yeah, it'll be empty. Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Just, I was talking with somebody about the Moonlight Inn. I know that the bakery, they consider that to be a heritage building, and the Moonlight Inn a heritage building. So they were asking me if there's a committee set up to help to raise the funds to, when we eventually want to renovate that.
Yeah,
I know there's a big
yes,
number there.
There's an official committee involving Erwin, myself, Jocelyn from the design company. Doug Pollard he's volunteered to be the chairperson of a public meeting that we had hoped to have done this year, but I think we're a little bit too far beyond that. Right now, the public meeting would have to be.
Well, just a bit more background. About 2.5 years ago, the concept of striking a committee to work on the restoration occurred, and then COVID kind of put a stall on it. So I think, probably over the winter, we're going to restart that process.
Exactly. And the other thing, we don't want to rain on anybody else's parade, but the fundraising on behalf of the bakery and then the very aggressive fundraising of the tennis, we had second thoughts about how many funds is this community capable of supporting at any one time. So that plus COVID is another reason why we just kind of held off. There will be a public meeting in the spring or early summer of 2023. No matter come hell or high water. And we have some work to do during the winter to get ready for that.
But if you could relay those names who are interested, good to know.
Sure.
So once we get our stuff structured, then we can go forward.
I think she'd be very helpful in fundraising. So.
All right. Are you in a position to share her name with me, or do you want to?
I'll talk to her first. And
Okay,
then
you talk to her, right? Yes, there's certainly a place for her and other like-minded people on the ad hoc committee, whatever you want to call it.
Sure, I'll tell her that.
Which may very well transform itself into a temporary board of directors to direct the activity, to direct the finances of the rehabilitation. So that's in the works. And I feel somewhat upset and embarrassed that we haven't made more progress so far, but there's good reasons for it.
There's lots on the go.
Thank you. Steve has his hand.
Yes, Steve?
Yeah, just a quick point of order. I think that we've established what we're doing with all these buildings right now, and I think that any further questions can always be relayed to Graham after, unless it's directly relating to his report.
Okay. Municipal buildings. Good point. All right. Thank you very much.
Steve.
So Steve, that means we're moving on to the doctor's committee for you.
Yay.
Yeah.
So it was a very busy year this year in 2022. The office opened with one doctor for 2 weeks. Then it was another doctor for each week until August 21st. There were a total of 361 patients seen, 23 phone call consultations, and 1 virtual consultation. So just for those people who don't know, you can have a virtual consultation. An exit interview was held with each doctor. A number of items were discussed. E-transfers of funds. This was just simply a discussion taking place with the CAO. Replacement of the futon cover is needed. There obviously needs to be quite a deep, thorough clean of the cottage, such as inside of the walls. There is also the need to remove the old outhouse, which is an eyesore and I suppose you might call it a biohazard. And also the need to print more patient cards for 2023. The batteries for the AEDs were a problem all summer. Due to transportation issues, they were not available till the end of the summer. However, now that everything is in order, although the doctor's cabinet shut down, the doctor's office is lending their AED to the police for the winter season until at such time that they receive their AED. And that is pretty much all I have for the doctor's office.
One question, Steve. I think it was in the one of the emails that went back and forth. We're expecting a report from the doctors committee, and it's been their tradition over the last few years, and I kind of like it. That's where they express what they think they need for the coming year, so we have some information we can work with when we get to the budget. Is that your understanding, Steve? There'll be a bit of a wish list with the final report.
Yeah, we're going to be meeting Friday evening, I believe. It's either Friday evening or Saturday. We're just trying to figure out which day is going to work best for everybody, but then we're going to be going over all those details. But definitely cleaning is going to be a big thing. I know that the air conditioning went over very well this year, but I think overall it's just those little nitty-gritty things. And I don't think that there's that much work, but you'll have a full report for the next meeting.
Okay, because we want to keep up with the details as we go along. So thank you for that.
Typically in October is when we get the annual report, October, November.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Communications, we continue to update the official RMVB Facebook page when issues arise. We ask residents to sign up for VB Connect. You can do it on our website. If you have trouble connecting, please get in touch with the RM office directly to sign up. and that is our emergency and communications service. So it's really important that you residents sign up with their Victoria Beach address as soon as you can, please, if you're not already. Do you have anything to add to communications, Steve?
No, I think that you've covered it.
Okay, thank you. Summer info office is closed for the season. It closes at 6 a.m. on Monday, September 5th, which always amazes me. There is a steady stream of traffic coming from the parking lot at 6 a.m. You know, we've been able to ride bikes and walk all summer, but man, as soon as you can get your vehicle, there's just almost a bit of a stampede. And then all these cars show up at the store and the bakery and the Moonlight, and because we've, I guess, put our bikes in storage and our feet only work on the gas and the brake. So just remember, when you are outside walking or driving in the community, there are pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers. So be safe and be aware. Share the road.
On the gate office, I think there's, I didn't see the invoices yet. There was one or two things to be finished off where we had given up the go ahead. So we'll, that should be considered pretty soon too.
Thank you. Steve, you had your hand up?
It was just to that point, and it's something I've been noticing year over year, is that the quote downtown of the restricted area is getting more and more busy when the shutoff happens, or in the spring before during the restricted period. I'm just wondering, and it's only food for thought right now, but in the future, if we might consider around the store area not allowing vehicles through, because it is starting to get really congested in that sort of turning corner right in front of the bakery and in front of the store. So I'm just very concerned somebody's going to end up getting hit at some point.
If I may, is it possible to impose some one-way streets? Try and, but as the traffic, I believe the off-season vehicle traffic in there is growing and growing and growing every year. If we come to the point where we have to upgrade our traffic and signage systems.
Something to think about. Okay, thank you, Steve. Good point. Building inspector, Graham.
Yeah, thank you to our building inspector, Curtis Bodwin, for his report. This is for the month of August, of course. There's two main buildings, 4 development permits. I'm glad to see people are actually believing us and taking out development permits from time to time. Thank you, Chris. That's 1 bunkhouse, 1 leveling of a building. That falls under permit purview now as well. 4 decks, 3 sheds, and 1 addition. The value of the permits, $670,000. And the year to date, the value of permits is $4.5 million. And the permit fees collected were $9,000 for August, which brings us up to $52,000 year to date in permit fees collected. So
A little lower than last.
a little bit lower than last year. There was a real rush towards the last half of last year. Yeah, we had over 10 million.
Well, we did raise fees last year.
Well, there was just a hell of a lot more permits. The increase in fees, that was only a little bit of fine tuning of the total dollars. So yeah, who knows how or why twice as many people decided to build last year at this time than this year at this time, but it is what it is. And it's,
I suspect that some of those building permits that were issued last year are still work in progress because things are going really slow. Talk to all the contractors and they just can't get it done.
oh yeah, yeah.
It's probably outstanding.
The number of open permits out there where work is.
But it's very encouraging for the municipality.
Oh yeah, it's good. It's good for us. Anyway, that's our instruction.
Okay, thank you. Move on to accessibility. We had a meeting about a month ago with members of the Albert Beach property owners in regard to the proposed Albert Beach accessibility project on the north extension of Pitt Road. We may have reached a compromise to place the accessible washroom and parking area just north of Safi Road to the west of the Pitt Road access in our area of Albert Beach. I dropped the ball a bit on this, I apologize, but it sounds like we have consensus with the accessibility committee, with Graham. I need to make sure council's on board, and I need to make sure Public Works is on board. So I'm going to get together with Public Works next week. This week is too busy. And we'll have a look at the actual site because it's just off the road, and I want to make sure that it's not in the way of snow plows and all that kind of, and drainage is not an issue. I don't want drainage to become an issue. There's enough drainage concerns in Albert Beach.
Yep.
We still have the $25,000 grant specifically for this project. I don't want to lose it, and I know we need to start working on this project, or we may. So I promise I will keep it going and keep you in the loop. The Enabling Accessibility Fund has opened their program for funding for accessibility projects. Deadline is the end of October for this session. We can apply for this grant to help fund an accessible washroom in the Village Green.
Yep.
Which we have had community consultation on. We met with a group of residents last summer,
Yep.
End of last summer, about the location, and they were very happy with having a standalone accessible washroom near the existing tennis washrooms. I need to know that council supports us approving for this grant or applying for this grant. So let's think about that. I'm not sure what the ratio is, like what we have to contribute, what they contribute. So I'll find that out. And we may also be able to apply for the golf course ramp with this grant.
I would like to do that
I'm
under.
not sure, so we can check that out. Steve?
I was only going to say that the tennis washrooms, yeah, that would definitely be something that I'd be on board with, especially given this year they were overloaded multiple times during the weekends. It's something that, yeah, we really need to jump on board here because otherwise they're going to get washed out and not in a good way.
Correct.
Penny, you had circulated an email stating that you asked for a consensus of council. Are you willing to support this grant? I've replied to say yes. Who else are you ready to
replied to say yes?
You did too.
Yeah, you did. Okay.
Well, we're in there, yeah.
So we have consensus, but I need to make sure we've got the details before I bring it to council for a resolution.
Yeah,
So
I think we need
Yeah,
to have.
we have to
much
have a
more-
resolution. Yeah.
I can support the concept.
Yeah.
Be nice to have a little more details as to
Absolutely.
exactly what we're gonna build, what's it gonna cost,
Absolutely.
who's gonna maintain it.
So
I'll have to get the drafting elf working.
yeah, the drafting all needs to. It's you did have it drawn up, I think, from last summer.
Yeah, I did an 8x10 and a 10x10. I got to revisit that and figure which makes the most sense.
All right.
And we do have a rough budget price because it's got water in it. Well,
Yeah,
water
that
only,
one.
but you know.
All right, thank you. Any questions on accessibility? Thank you. Heritage and Trails, Steve?
For Heritage, the volunteer award's still open, so please, if you know anybody in the community who deserves recognition for their work, register and put it in. Trails, there's nothing to report right now. It's the trails are a mess. Random volunteers are going in, and it's just the same message as always. If we can find somebody to update our site so that we can get a proper registration page for our volunteers, that'd be great. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got right now. And there's no snow on the ground, so cross-country skiers aren't out.
Our public works guys have been using the skid steer that we've rented, and they've upgraded the path behind the Lakeview cottages that leads down to the Lost Lagoon.
Oh, good.
So they've also upgraded the Lost Lagoon path.
We got some compliments on that.
Yeah, and then they went behind the cottages. There's the path that comes from Zaglinski down to the lagoon, basically. And they've upgraded the bottom end of that path that was underwater. So the skid steer is proving really useful. So if there are some trails that you're aware of that they could use the skid steer for, please let me know and I'll pass it on.
There's a list, it's all of them. But just to that end, and only because it was mentioned, skid steer is something that Public Works and the fire department really need. So again, come budget time, that is something that we can use even for brush clearing. We can use it for if we get something very specific that has been requested from the fire department for a long time, but also Public Works can use it for those exact type of projects that you just listed.
As far as the unit that's currently in play, we're in a pretty price for it per month. What's the plan? How long are we going to keep it? All winter? Or?
I'm not sure.
I had just said till the threat with the lake levels going down in storms. So I was thinking to the end of October, maybe at the
It's
latest.
close to 3,000 a month.
Pushing that is 2,800, I think.
So end of October.
I'll need a executive decision when to pull the plug on that. So
There hasn't been any information forwarded to council about, plans to shore up the dike. That was why we acquired the skid steer in the first place.
it's interesting you're finding other uses for it.
Well, I'm really happy to hear that because it was intended for animal protection, and if we, nothing's happening there, so I'd be interested to know what a person is suggesting in terms of work this fall, because we know history tells us the lake gets ugly in October.
Yeah, we don't want to send it back. Just whatever he says that we might need it. And I'm sure that
Do
we
we have any
can,
specifics about what we are going to do as far as,
No, with that, just the sandbags when people request and their plans for it, they get it approved by our EMO and then we deliver the bags and loads of sand. And they load the bags themselves and shore up their properties. That's as far as we
right. But
Nothing with RM properties or dikes.
for 2023 budgeting, once again, we have to address or not the issue of a skid steer loader for Public Works, right, Steve?
And don't forget council's meeting with the province next week to talk about some shoreline issues. So maybe that's a good question, as well as with we need to talk to Brad and maybe Shelley.
at times people will think that the only issue I get concerned about is Albert Beach. But there's a real problem, and the idea of individuals sandbagging their own properties is simply not practical. You'd have to build a 6 or 7 foot dike around every cabin, as opposed to the concerns I raised 2 months ago is that leading edge of the dike at Albert Beach needs attention. To ask individual property owners to build a dike around their property, it's just not going to happen. There's just not enough manpower, not enough sandbags.
But it's also not the RM's responsibility to protect private property. On private
We're
property.
protecting, well, I never proposed any diking on private property. Proposed.
Well, specifically what Erwin was proposing, and
edge.
I believe what we agreed to was sandbagging right along the edge under where the water has exposed underneath of the clay. And that is something that we absolutely need to do. And I mean, hell, I'll drive over there for the weekend if we get that going. But to Erwin's point, that is something that absolutely needs to happen, because if that gets undercut, then we can have a real serious issue on our hands. But I mean, we might as well do that while we have the skid steer, because if we get one of those bad storms, then we can undercut the dike, and that would be disastrous.
Well, a number of people in Albert Beach have expressed interest in volunteering. The likelihood of that happening diminishes every day because more and more people leave. By Thanksgiving, they're all gone because the water goes. So if we're going to do something, we got to get going on it.
Well, it's interesting that sandbags to protect the clay, which seems suitable in that application, is in fact the exact opposite of what we're looking at. Clay to protect the sandbags.
So
each section has its own needs and priorities.
So maybe Lon and I can find some time to talk to Brad and Trevor and see what we can come up budgets for that. for our region, but-
Well, and while the skid steer is still available and whatever else.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, thank you. That is the committee reports. Be it resolved, the monthly committee reports be accepted as presented. May I have a mover?
I'll move that.
Graham, thank you. Ian, second. Thank you. Any further comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you, gentlemen. Accounts and finances, accounts payable. Be it resolved, the following list of accounts be approved for payment. Accounts payable checks 10569 to 10619, the amount of $90,171.76. May I have a mover? Mr. Chadsey, thank you. Second. Graham, thank you. Any comments?
I didn't really have a lot to say, but I went through the numbers and I was quite surprised that most of these are all less than $5,000. There's only one for the receiver general for $22,968.
As a matter of fact, the whole AP list for this meeting is low. And I think they're going to stay that way pretty much through the year.
I hope so.
That's also, we kind of shot our wad over the summer.
Don't write any more checks.
Yeah.
Put your pen
Any further comments? Thank you, Ian.
away.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Just waiting for Steve there. We got him. No business from the previous meeting. Other business, the Valley Fiber Agreement. I would propose that council table this for 2 weeks until we get a couple things sorted out with Valley Fiber, including a location for a building that is suitable to them and to us. And lease versus purchase, etc. But we have had our lawyers look at the agreement. I think they're, for the most part, good. I just have one concern, so I'd like to make sure we're all on the right page before we move forward and sign this agreement. So we're all good if we table for 2 weeks?
Yes.
Okay. Ian, you have a question?
I thought I remember from the last meeting, we were talking about references and someone's going to check in.
We did. Lon checked a few people. I checked with a
St.
few.
Clement and the Armitage and a couple others. And they all had favorable things to say about Valley Fiber.
And I also heard from a few RMs and they have no concerns so far. So that was reassuring. All right. So we move on next to fall brush pickup.
Say that faster.
I can't say that fast. So we did get some tenders. The issue, I guess, is whether council wants to move ahead. Lon, do you happen to have? I do not have the tenders in front of me. Council, I believe, received all these,
Yes.
both of these electronically, correct?
One was faxed to, yes, so electronic.
Yeah.
One email, yeah. One Alpha Forestry Solutions and Kelly's Tree Service.
And what are we looking at in terms of cost for Alpha?
That all depends.
Oh,
They were giving us the hourly rate that they charge. And they both have different manpower, different equipment, so the hours are gonna be probably a little less for Alpha Forestry, but their dollar per hour is more.
okay.
And Kelly's Tree Service, their dollars per hour are more, but they have substantially less resources per hour that they're charging us for. So it all depends on how many piles are there and how long each person takes. I mean, Kelly's gave us a quote for 80 hours. It's $285 an hour, which is around $22,800. And like I said in my email, if you wanted to get comparable to that quote, they'd have to be Alpha Forestry Solutions. I didn't write it down, I'm sorry, because of my email. But I think they'd have to be under the 10-hour mark for different things, just because.
Because of all the equipment.
Just to match the dollar volume, right? Or the
I think I recall you said they have to do some 2 days.
pick up 2 days, yeah, and then ship everything under 10 hours.
Question.
Yeah.
Lon, the handwriting on Alpha's quote, is that your?
That's my scribble, yeah, and that's just me going with 80 hours with Alpha, but they won't take that long.
Okay.
I just went quote for quote. That's, I mean, if you took 80 hours with them and 50 hours of chipping. I mean, they're quoting me 40.
So Alpha looks like,
They're not going to take that long.
Alpha looks like 37,000 and Kelly's looks like 23,000.
They did give us an hourly rate. I mean, you could limit how many hours you give them.
I think we were going to, what's the tender that was gonna find the scope of work and say, here's the job, tell us what it's gonna cost to do it. This hourly rate thing, in my view, is just a license.
Unless we have pictures of all the piles that are available, how are we supposed to tell, how are they supposed to quote? No one, Ian and I spoke to different contractors and no one would give you $1. But they're gonna give you an hourly rate.
I mean, I've driven through the area again. I actually went through the restricted area last weekend. I still don't see any files.
There
I
are
mean, I see a few,
There are.
but not a lot.
That's the
No.
hard part of it.
That's,
Just you can't.
that's
get
the
any
hard
quotes.
part. Is like, if they're talking about 80 hours, I don't know how they measure that. I would think that if you want to get a firm quote, you got to do it on the day they go out and they drive around, they take a look at it and they say, yeah, that's going to be 60 hours. We're going to charge you this much. But to do it in advance, you don't know who's going to be taking the brush out over the next 2 weeks.
So I'm giving them an allocation of 80 hours, whatever the number is. In my view, it's just a license to be inefficient.
But how would we,
We don't,
how would we structure
We
the
have a fixed
invitation
price
to
for the
tender?
summer cleanup.
it was based on 80 hours.
Yeah, all the previous.
It has been for years.
You would stipulate it by having a public works check on them just to make sure that they're proper.
Is it
Hourly
too
rate.
late- is it too late to reconsider?
Or the whole summer was 80 hours.
Sorry. Summer was an 80-hour contract. They reached their 80 hours. The original contractor reached the 80 hours and stepped away for other reasons, for other business. And then we had to hire another company to come in and finish it. There was an enormous amount of brush.
Absolutely.
And I know we completed it in August. Alpha completed it in August. They did a phenomenal job. I think what we have to figure out now is if we go ahead with fall brush pickup, which we promised our residents in our taxes and in our information to residents that we would do fall pickup. If we're not going to do it, we have to stop it now because people are putting brush out.
And they're calling the office.
And they're calling the office asking if we're going to do brush pickup. Steve has mentioned a few times that we are way over budget. It's not financially prudent to do a fall pickup. On the other hand, we can't leave it sit there all winter. 2 of Public Works big trucks are not in commission at the moment. So to ask Public Works to pick it up is one thing. If their trucks are working, where are they going to put it? And we can't ship it.
I haven't driven around the other parts of the Turtle Beach, but I've driven all around the beach. No evidence of any sizable files. The summer cleanup was done extremely well. And for the most part, I think we, from a financial point of view, have to take a serious look at postponing the fall pickup. We cannot afford another 40 or 50 or $60,000.
But we don't know what's going to happen from here until Thanksgiving. If we have 3 or 4 incredible storms and more dead trees come down and take down live trees or vice versa, then we're in a pickle. We don't have fall pickup.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I think as a council, I think from this point forward, continuing to operate the way we are, I think you're going to be frustrated. Just because you cannot predict the brush pile volume and the people giving you contracts can't predict how many hours it's really going to take. You're a perfect example of that. I mean, if you can, they can tell you they'll do it for $20,000 and they'll get halfway through it or quarter, then they don't finish. Contractors just say, well, I can't do it, and they'll leave. So I think evaluating the entire system is probably fairly important if you want to keep moving forward. Otherwise, we're going to just be dealing with this frustration every year.
We've got to come up with a long-term solution because this one is not working. I mean, I can't believe you can't structure a contract that defines the work.
You can if you know how many piles there are. And that's the hard part. You never know how many
That's
piles
part
there
of, the quantitative analysis that's done before a construction tender's done.
It's not construction though, it's Mother Nature.
Well,
That's the issue.
But Steve has been very patient. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
So I just want to clarify where we are. I had asked Lon to just give a general estimate as to how much Public Works has put in. And it's roughly around $11,000 this year. So all in, where we're sitting is somewhere between $83,000 to $85,000 on brush for one pickup so far this year. The two quotes are for, if we take a look at 80 hours, because Kelly's estimated 80 hours, and then Lon had sort of done, had calculated based on the hourly wage or hourly cost. If it's 80 hours that we're giving it to Alpha, then that's 37,100, and Kelly's would be 22,800. So all in, if that's how much it costs, which so far this year we've been blown out of the water. If we go with Alpha, we will have spent a total of $142,409 for brush pickup this year, assuming everything goes according to plan. If we go with Kelly's, it's $105,849 this year if we go forward. So right now, I would just like to get Lon to confirm, how much did we originally budget for brush pickup this year?
I helped council budget $40,000.
$40,000.
Yeah.
So if we go with Alpha, we will have spent over $100,000 more than we budgeted for brush pickup, and we've already doubled what we've budgeted for. We need to stop and just simply say that the budget has been blown. We've doubled it. Could we have predicted that the contractor just simply did 3 streets and that was it, and we had to go through all the nightmare scenario that we did? No, we couldn't have predicted that. But this is the situation that we're in, and we're running the rails. We're still projecting to have a very light surplus. The only problem is that there are going to be things that are unforeseen. There are going to be more expenses, and right now we're sort of running the rails at $100,000. That can get blown real easy. We need just one emergency, and this year is a year of emergencies. So I'm begging council, stop. We need to stop.
If we stop, we do have to let our public know.
And it's arguably already too late to tell them to stop because the period for them that they're allowed to put their stuff out, we're already 3/4 of the way through that window.
We are, but there are more piles in the vehicle restricted area every day. They're not huge. They're nowhere near what they were in the summer. But if they sit there, they will get added to. And that's a fire risk, and we're very aware of fire smart and fire risk in our communities. So if we're not going to go ahead with fall pickup, fall brush contract, somehow we need to pick up all that brush that is out there and do something with it. And that may mean taking it to Traverse Bay landfill, or it may mean taking it to our gravel pit and eventually burning it, which is an issue for some residents. Not having brush pickup is going to be an issue for some residents. So I think we're between a bit of a rock and a hard place. I'm not sure.
Pick your poison.
Ian?
Well, I was thinking that, because you were pointing out there's 2 weeks left before Thanksgiving, so you don't know if there's going to be big storms. But I think maybe it makes sense to tell people not to put any more out. See what happens over the next 2 weeks. And if all we see is the same sort of piles that we have, then maybe Public Works can pick that up and maybe just bring it to a pile somewhere and then either chip it or burn it next year. But as I said, I've driven through Sand Cliffs area, I've driven through the restricted area. You're right, there's small piles, but these are small piles. And the other issue I have is with the fire issue on that. When you walk through any of the forest in Victoria Beach, there's so much dead wood on the ground. The fire is not going to be the little pile in front of my house. It's going to be the forest, right? So that's a bigger issue to deal with, though. But, that would be my thought on it. Just wait and see tell people not to put any more out and then wait and see 2 weeks to see if we have some big storms that cause a big problem.
Well, it'll have to be an emergency alert to stop the
Yeah.
presses. Don't take any more out. While we decide, or just don't take any more out, period.
I think we have to make a
Clear and
decision
concise.
today. Steve, anything further?
Just on the fire hazard issue, I get it. One of the reasons why, or well, the main reason why the program exists in the first place is to lower our fire hazard.
Mhm.
And you know, I'm not one to typically choose money over safety. I'd rather choose safety. But again, like if we have one more emergency and we have to run the rails and possibly go into a deficit, we have to get approval for that. And that is, again, a lot more time, effort, money that we're going to have to spend. And it's just 1 year. We need to figure out the brushing. The brushing system is completely broken. We can't continue to go forward. It needs to be overhauled. And I've thrown my proposal in, but whatever system we go with, we need to really identify how we move forward. And I just think that this one time we need to say no more.
All right, gentlemen. I think we've heard what everyone has to say. What is your consensus on whether we accept the fall brush pickup, either of the fall pickup contracts? Or do we tell our residents, please, not please, stop, there will be no fall brush pickup?
Well, we need a resolution.
Right. So I'm
Follow up
just-
with this one, I already went to read.
We don't have a resolution. Well,
I say put a pause
be it resolved
and
that,
resolve the problem. We got to figure out how to do this brushing thing. And it may be that what the municipality can afford is a limited number, and then it becomes the residents' problem. They say, I live in St. Andrews, I don't get brush pickup.
For the resolution, I would say be resolved to not award fall brush pickup and advise residents that there will be a fall brush pickup.
That's so moved.
as soon as possible.
Why? Is it you gonna move on that?
And we can use those signs that we have to say that these locations have been shut down to go buy anywhere that, you know, people have already been packing them up. So I mean, that would be a small minor cost, but that would help with some of it. Send out an email blast, throw it on Connect, throw it on the website, put it on Facebook. I mean, people will find out real quick. We'll take some heat for it, but you know what? We won't be risking a deficit.
We never know about that, but
I mean risking a deficit based on this decision.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. We've spent way too much money so far on this.
And we've had some
But-
other emergency expenses that
This
are
year that
really
just,
challenging.
yeah,
But we need to rethink the whole concept right from the whiteboard, just start over again. and say,
Yeah,
how are we gonna
and
do this?
one possibility is the same as pretty well every other municipality in Manitoba. We don't do a brush
I
pickup.
think you're gonna get a lot of pushback
Oh, yeah,
from some, you can't, it's very difficult to take something away.
exactly.
So, and
It's
public
been a
works.
point of pride for many years that, hey, at Victoria Beach, we have not one but 2 brush pickups.
There's a solution somewhere.
Aren't we
Just have
smart
to get
to
creative.
Well, exactly.
Well,
But
the consequences are simple, raise taxes.
We probably have to narrow it down to just 1 pickup and give the contractors a chance to tour what's on the ground that they can prepare their bids for.
yeah,
All right,
oh, exactly.
in the
That's-
meantime,
that's
gentlemen,
further
could
down the
you
road.
please reread your resolution?
The resolution as it reads now would be it resolved not to award the 2022 fall brush pickup contract and advise residents ASAP that there will not be fall brush pickup service.
Should we say anything about Public Works will attempt
No.
to pick up what's already laying around now?
I think that would be just administration. I think I'll talk to Trevor and see how we get it.
That'd be based on public works ability and time commitments in other areas.
Okay.
All right,
We're loading up their
So we have a
bucket.
resolution on the floor, guys,
Erwin,
which Erwin moved.
Second.
I'll second.
Steve, sorry, Steve's brain.
Oh, no, Steve is my control. Put Steve down for a second.
All right, any further, okay, we'll change that to Steve. Any further discussion, gentlemen? I think we're all agreed that we do need to rehaul this system. Public Works needs to be involved in that decision. Perhaps Brad, I'm not sure, but we need to rethink this. Come 2020, before 2023. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Next up is the MPP application, which is part of the DF, Disaster Financial Assistance Program.
Can we get just a quick summary for everyone's benefit of what this actually means?
Can I read the resolution first?
Okay.
Be it resolved, the council supports the submission of the proposal under the Manitoba government's mitigation and preparedness program for equipment purchases and authorizes the CAO to submit the proposal. Excuse me, may I have a mover? Ian, thank you. Steve, you second? Thank you. Juan, would you like to answer Erwin's query, if you could?
It's a program that they created this spring. It's designed to kind of get the municipal's portion back of a DFA incident. So you spend $100,000 and you get 80,000 back from the DFA program. There's $20,000 that the RM would have to pay. DFA through this program would be willing to give that $20,000 back to the RM. So 100% fund the DFA program, but we need this so that that extra money that we get back, the 20%, that we've made a resolution such as this, letting them know what we'll be using that $20,000 for. And it can either be equipment purchase, like you said, or we stick it into a reserve fund. Or that. And then there was a.
Haven't we already spent the money?
We have.
Yeah, but DFA will then, instead of giving us back just the portion that I mentioned before, they're going to full, they'll give us full refund for it.
The extra, say if we're allowed 80 and they give us 20 under this MPP program, the 20 has to go into a separate account. You can't use it for the DFA. You have to put it towards future mitigation and preparedness program. So
Okay.
buying equipment.
That's what I didn't
Is
understand.
this all about the flooding issue? Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So it's money we spend, we get 80% back. We pay 20% and then we get reimbursed for that as long as we spend it on something else. That's
Correct. That's approved by this program.
Yeah. And when
It took me a while to understand that one too. It was very confusing. I got excited. I thought there was like $1 million available and we could.
The long and short of it is we're still going to be short on 20% for the actual flood mitigation work done.
Right. That's
Yeah.
correct.
But it gets softened up because they're going to let us use this slush fund to spend money on something that we may.
put it towards a skid steer, perhaps,
Yeah,
right?
And this is all provincial money.
Actually, it's federal.
It says Manitoba government's MPP program.
I think MVP is provincial.
Right, DFA is federal.
Probably the funds come through the province to us. That's
Right. DFA, I think, is a joint program, actually.
Steve, you had your hand up?
I was only, I just wanted a little bit of clarification. Would we be able to use it for the creation of a French drain, or is it only for equipment? Because that's something that that could really go to help the residents of Albert Beach, and we've been talking about for a while.
There are specifics, I believe, in the MPP program. Lon and I both attended a webinar on it.
I just gave 4 different things so that we could put this money towards, see if they would approve it: a skid steer, sandbag filler, tractor, and temporary diking solutions. I'm sure drainage solutions would also fulfill that. I could add that as well.
But it's not going to be a lot of money, like it's.
So we're just authorizing you to pursue the availability of this money.
Yes, you agree to this. I submit everything with council resolution. The application.
It's free money, basically.
Yep.
Gotta have for it.
Okay, you have to ask for
All
it.
right.
You and I paid for some of that.
I know we did. I know we did. But it's,
All right.
quote, it's free money.
So
Yeah.
the wording of the resolution is,
Be it resolved that council supports the submission of the proposal under the Manitoba government's MPP Mitigation Preparedness Program for equipment purchases and authorizes the CAO to submit the proposal.
Other approved purchases.
Equipment and
Other appropriate.
Well, it's their program, so
So I just don't want it limited to just equipment.
Other qualifying.
The fourth point you mentioned is for issues to deal with the.
Yeah, but not a resolution.
I got,
His grant application
Right.
talks about it, so.
Why not use the same word?
Yeah. Equipment and other approved.
I could just put other
approved
preparedness initiatives or something, measures.
initiatives.
Yeah, good.
So be it resolved, the council supports the submission of the proposal under the Manitoba Government's mitigation preparedness program for preparedness.
For equipment and other preparedness measures.
That's allowed.
As deemed appropriate.
Okay.
Close enough.
Do I have consensus on this amendment?
Yes.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. I thought this would be a shorter meeting. We're a chatty bunch. Moving on to the tax sale reserve bid. Whereas pursuant to section 372 of the Municipal Act, the municipality may set a reserve bid in the amount of the tax arrears and costs in respect of the property. Be it resolved that the rural municipality of Victoria Beach place a reserve bid on all properties in the amount of all arrears and costs in respect of each property. May I have the mover? Erwin, thank you. Graham? Or Steve, Ian, Ian.
One of you guys.
Deviant.
Steve, Ian, there you go.
Just don't understand, this is people that haven't paid their taxes and therefore we have the right to sell their properties that we're talking
And
about.
yes.
It's
Right?
the first step that has to be taken in order to trigger the tax sale.
No, it's the last step.
Well, it's,
That's the other final step.
Is this setting up an auction date? Is that what
Yes,
it's doing?
it's already established.
The auction date
Either-
is 9th of November, 2022. Tax Service runs the program, the tax sale program for us. It's a huge amount of paperwork.
It's for properties that are in arrears for over 2
They
years.
they do it.
We haven't paid for it yet.
reasonable. Pretty reasonable.
And there's a lot of communication that goes to the property before it gets to this point.
This is the pressure point, either pay or you're gonna lose it.
They can pay right up till the day of the 9th of November. There are 3 properties on the list in this year's tax sale. Could end up being none, but they all pay.
those locations are posted, correct?
They were.
Oh, yes, yeah. They've been posted.
If someone's interested in attending the auction.
No,
Which properties
well,
are-
tax services does all the
Oh, I
advertising.
Yeah, tax
I
services.
can send out a message on Connect if you like the date of the auction, and I could also just include the property roll numbers that are there.
Can you talk about the addresses or is that something?
It's public,
Public.
correct, it's public, 122 on PR 504, 22 Hampton Road, and 4 Scott Drive.
See if there's anything around there.
So,
What's that 122 PR? Is that the-
number 122 on Provincial Road 504.
Oh, the 504.
So the cemetery.
That's north of the.
I'm not sure, but it's on 504. I don't believe so.
Given the building.
No, given the
Since there's a
the
building.
amount of the assessed value, no, there's a building on. There's buildings on all of these properties. All right, any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. And the CSO agreement was added to our agenda. Be it resolved to approve the operating agreement for the self-funded Community Safety Officer Program between the RMVB and the Government of Manitoba and Victoria Beach Police Service as attached in Schedule A. Further be it resolved to approve the mayor, the CAO to sign the agreement on behalf of the RMVB Council. I have a mover. Erwin, thank you. Second. Graham.
Second.
Thank you. And this is merely to update the sign.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Erwin.
This is a matter of formality. Graham, you need to move this one, and Steve, you would need to second it.
Pardon me.
That was my fault, sorry, I should have mentioned that to you. Just because it's just amending a previous resolution that we made. Sorry, it's just housekeeping, but
All right,
So who needs to move it?
Graham,
so moved.
and then Steve. Steve, are you going to second this?
Please. We need you to second this motion, Steve.
Sorry,
Because
I had a problem. Sorry, what did you say?
We need you to second this motion as we're amending a previous motion that you seconded.
Oh.
Graham.
Okay, yep, absolutely. Yep, sorry. I cut out there for a second.
Sorry, okay, thank you. So any further discussion? Do you want to give us an update on it? It's just really housekeeping.
It's housekeeping, just changing the signatures of card.
Well, it was distributed. We looked at it at the last meeting and it's all pretty much.
Any further comments, questions? Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you. Moving on to correspondence. I don't have a lot, but residents should be aware that Pine Falls Hospital ER is still closed. The service is still suspended until the end of September. Please call 911 if you have an emergency. If you are willing and in good shape to drive to an ER, please make sure you visit the ierha.ca website to see which emergency room is open in our area before you drive. Make sure you're safe to drive. That's sort of all I had. Anybody else?
Just a comment that Aaron, Forrest and I attended a session last week dealing with some climate projections. It was a very interesting presentation done by his name escapes me. He's
The climate guy.
He's the climate guy from, that's right, that's his website, from the University of Manitoba. The predictions for the winter are cold and lots of snow. So that augurs bad for us come spring.
Yeah.
So just wanted to pass that along.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
And that was the Red River Basin Commission
Yes.
meeting, and our emergency consultant Shelley Napier also presented, and her comment was to follow up on the climate guy, whose name now I can't remember.
Was it Ian?
I can't remember, that we need to be prepared for a wet spring. More flooding in the spring, so prepare now. There's not a lot of resources at the provincial level. There's not a lot of resources at the municipal level. Property owners are responsible for their own properties, but we need to, as an RM, and as we discussed earlier, try to do some pre-planning and preparation in advance of the predicted high water.
I was just going to say that, again, just as a reminder, when the sort of water goes down a little bit more, or at the very least when freeze up comes up, so that everybody's a little bit more calm and not panicking about the high water level, is that we need to put a motion forward to the AMM, to the province to, I would say at this point, quite frankly, demand that they increase their levels of dikes above 722, because 722 just won't cut it anymore. And I mean, we Gimli flooded, and everybody on the lake now is at risk. So it's something that we need to do, because historically, you can throw all historical levels out the window. I think really the province needs to start protecting us up to 725 at the very least. But yeah,
Good idea. We may be too late for this year's AMM, but
I'm sure that they would put it on as an emergency motion.
we'd have to pass a resolution at the next council meeting to do that. I think.
Just one other item. I was away for a couple of weeks, and when I got back, I did some walking around. met some people in Albert Beach whose property backed onto Poirier property, and they were all very appreciative of the fact that Public Works, together with Mitch Poirier, have been able to get the water levels lower. We appreciate the efforts of the Public Works. And from what I understand, we're very close to actually getting the Mitch Poirier's lift station fully functional. Hydro is there and operating. I understand your Public Works people put an extra pump in.
That's great.
That's made a huge difference. So thank you very much. The people were very appreciative.
All right, anything else? All right, be it resolved, September 20th, 2022 regular council meeting be adjourned. Next regular council meeting to be held October 4th. October 4th. 6 p.m. here at 705 1661 Portage Avenue in Winnipeg. May I have a mover?
I'll move that.
Graham, second. Ian. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
Do we have the rest of the meetings here this fall?
We alternate.
Those top three.